Welcome to Bookpods. If you have ever pitched a business idea to like your friends or family or your colleagues and they told you it was brilliant, there is a 99% chance they were just lying to your face.
Yeah, I know it sounds incredibly cynical, but the reality of product development, and really any creative venture, is that the way we traditionally ask for feedback is just fundamentally broken.
Right, we practically beg people to give us these false positives.
Exactly. Which ultimately leads to us building products or services or content that absolutely nobody actually wants to buy.
So to fix this, we are pulling from a widely celebrated book in the startup world today. It's called The Mom Test, written by Rob Fitzpatrick. And our mission for this deep dive is to break down Fitzpatrick's specific rules for interviewing potential customers.
And the goal here is to do it so effectively that even your own mother cannot lie to you about your idea.
Yeah, we're basically looking at a framework that acts as a shortcut to finding the actual truth before you go and waste months of your time and thousands of dollars.
Let's be real. Whether you are a startup founder, a content creator, or just someone prepping for a pitch, this methodology completely rewrites the rules of engagement. You really have to pay attention to this.
So true. And the root of this entire issue is something Fitzpatrick calls the Pathos Problem.
Right, the pathos problem. I mean, human beings are deeply social creatures. When you approach a friend or a family member with an idea that you are clearly super passionate about, their natural instinct kicks in.
Which is ego protection.
Exactly. They do not want to crush your dreams. They just want to protect your feelings.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you just spent like 3 hours baking a cake from scratch. You serve a slice to your best friend, you stand there beaming with pride, and you ask them, hey, do you like it?
I mean, even if that cake tastes like drywall, your friend is going to swallow hard, smile, and tell you it's fantastic.
Right, because they love you, and the cake represents your personal effort. But if you are using that feedback to decide whether to, take out a massive loan and open a commercial bakery,
Yeah, that's going to be a disaster.
total disaster. The fact that your friend lied to spare your feelings is going to bankrupt you. You need to know what kinds of desserts they actually buy with their own money on a random Tuesday afternoon.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of how we perceive not just other people's feelings, but our own future actions.
Oh yeah, the future self is a huge problem.
It really is.
Mm.
The pathos problem triggers false encouragement from the people who care about you. But it's heavily compounded by the fact that human beings are universally terrible at predicting their own future behavior.
So true.
When you ask a potential customer a hypothetical question like, would you use this software? Or would you pay $20 a month for this service? You are not talking to their current reality. You are talking to their optimistic, ideal future self.
Oh, the future version of me is incredibly disciplined. That guy goes to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. He learns Spanish on his commute, and he absolutely buys your productivity app to organize his entire life.
Right. The optimistic future self makes these grand promises. But those future tense promises lead directly to false positives. The current reality is that people rarely change their deeply ingrained habits.
So what's the metric then?
The only reliable predictor of future behavior is past behavior. What have they already done? Have they actively spent money to solve this problem in the past 6 months?
Or have they spent hours searching for, like, a messy workaround?
Exactly. Because if they haven't taken physical action to solve the problem already, all the enthusiastic praise in the world will not translate to actual sales when you launch.
The terrifying takeaway here is that the traditional pitch is entirely dead. I mean, if you lead a conversation by pitching your idea, you instantly contaminate the data.
Yeah, the moment you say, hey, I have an idea for a thing, what do you think? Their defenses go up.
The social politeness kicks in, their optimistic future self takes over, and the objective truth just vanishes. So the primary challenge is gathering data without contaminating the subject.
Which brings us to the first, deliberately counterintuitive rule of the methodology. Stop talking about your idea entirely.
Wait, entirely?
Entirely. If you want to know if your concept solves a real monetizable problem, you must strip your solution out of the conversation. Focus strictly on the customer's life, their past behaviors, and how they currently navigate the friction you are trying to eliminate.
We actually have a great specific example from the sources to illustrate how this works in practice. So imagine you have an idea for an AI-driven photo app.
Okay.
The concept is that it uses pose recognition to coach users on how to take better pictures in real time. A bad conversation, the way most founders naturally approach this, goes like this. You go to your mom and say, hey, I'm building this AI app that helps you pose for photos. Do you think $15 would be too much for it?
Right. And your mom immediately compares your arbitrary $15 price point to, a $100 professional photo shoot. She tells you it sounds like a great value and that she would definitely use it to get a better profile picture.
So you walk away thinking you have validated a pricing model and secured a target demographic. You leave thinking you are a tech visionary.
But let's look at the good conversation, applying the rule of never mentioning the idea. You approach your mom and you simply ask, when was the last time you updated your profile picture?
She thinks about it and says, maybe a year ago. You ask, where did you take it? She says, on a boat for a birthday trip.
And then you dig deeper and ask who took the photo. She says, oh, we just handed my phone to a stranger on the boat and he snapped it.
Wow.
The truth reveals itself in those behavioral details, right? You might follow up by asking if she has ever paid for professional photos or even just planned a casual photo shoot with her friends.
And when she says no, the entire business model collapses in the best way possible. You just learn that she does not actually care about planning a good photo.
Exactly. She takes no physical actions to improve her pictures. She simply hands her phone to a stranger. If she downloaded your highly technical posing app, it would just sit on her home screen completely unused.
So she is fundamentally not your customer, despite directly telling you she would buy it in the first conversation. You managed to find the fatal flaw in the business model without ever exposing the business model to her.
We can see this applied to the education space as well.
Mm.
The sources mention an online guitar course. Say you want to build the ultimate guitar education platform with 4K resolution, slow motion playback, and multi-angle video.
Sounds expensive.
Very. And the flawed approach is asking a beginner, hey, would you watch high-res multi-angle guitar videos? The functional approach is finding someone who plays and asking, what were the specific frustrations you faced the last time you tried to learn a new song?
Or I guess for someone who wants to play but hasn't started, you'd ask, what physical steps have you taken to try and learn the guitar up until now?
Precisely. It's all about past actions.
But wait, I have to push back on this from the perspective of a founder. If my entire identity right now is wrapped up in this solution I am building, how do I actually sit there and not jump in?
It's tough.
Because when a potential customer starts describing a frustration, and I am sitting across from them knowing my app perfectly fixes it, every instinct in my brain is going to scream at me to pitch the solution.
Oh, it is genuinely uncomfortable to suppress that urge. The text provides a very blunt golden rule for listening in these scenarios. Shut up as much as possible.
Shut up, just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
There is a psychological trick provided, which is to literally count to 4 in your head after the person finishes speaking. When they wrap up a thought, just nod and count. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Why 4 seconds?
Because human beings abhor silence in a conversation.
Mm.
We view silence as social tension. If you give them that empty space, they will almost always jump back into fill.
Oh, wow. I do that all the time.
Right. They will expand on what they were just saying, and that is often when they reveal the deeper secondary motivations or the actual budget constraints you desperately need to understand.
So you essentially force them to keep excavating their own problem. But, and this is a big, but relying on silence assumes they are going to fill that void with useful information. Even if you ask strictly about their life and you manage your own silence perfectly, people are still going to throw conversational curveballs.
Oh, absolutely. They will offer answers that sound like validation, but are completely useless.
Yeah.
Just because you are asking the right structural questions does not mean you are immune to bad data.
Yeah.
You have to operate as an active filter during the interview. The methodology outlines 3 specific types of misleading responses that you must actively watch out for and neutralize in real time.
Okay, the first type of bad data is compliments. And this is incredibly dangerous because compliments feel amazing. Someone tells you your insight into the market is brilliant, and your first reaction is to write that quote down and put it in a slide deck for your investors.
But in reality, it is just social lubrication. You actually have to treat those compliments as bright red flags.
Really?
Yeah.
Red flags.
Yes. If someone says, wow, that sounds like a really smart way to solve the issue, you do not take that to the bank. You deflect it, you acknowledge it politely, and you immediately steer the conversation back to specifics about their past behavior.
So a compliment means I messed up.
Basically, a compliment is usually a strong indicator that you accidentally slipped up and started talking about your idea again, rather than focusing on their life.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The second type of bad data is fluff.
Oh, fluff is everywhere.
Fluff is that generic hypothetical language we touched on earlier with the optimistic future self. It is when a user says things like, I always struggle with organizing my inbox. Or, I usually try to find new tools for that. Or, I might buy a subscription if it had these specific features.
Fluff is deadly because it masquerades as hard validation. When you hear words like always, usually, never, or would, you have to anchor that fluff to a past action immediately.
Anchor it.
Yeah. If a potential customer says, I love e-learning, I always look for ways to upgrade my skills online, you cannot simply write down that your user loves e-learning. You have to drop an anchor.
You ask them, when was the exact last time you paid for an online course? Walk me through what that purchasing process looked like.
Exactly. Suddenly, the timeline of reality exposes the truth. You might find out the quote-unquote last time they bought a course was 5 years ago, and they never even logged past the second module.
And the fluff just dissolves instantly.
Yes, it does.
Okay, the third type of bad data you have to dodge is ideas or feature requests. Users absolutely love to play the role of product designer. They will sit across from you and say, you know what would make this perfect? If your software could sync directly with my smart fridge and categorize my grocery spending.
The trap for founders here is writing every single one of those feature requests down, assuming that if they build exactly what the customer asks for, the customer is guaranteed to buy it.
But they don't buy it, do they?
Usually, no. If you say yes to every feature request, you end up building a complex, bloated monster of a product that serves no one perfectly. The methodology dictates putting the customer on the witness stand.
The witness stand.
Yeah, you don't ask them to solve the crime. You just ask them where they were on the night of the 14th. When a customer pitches an idea, you dig beneath the prescription. You ask them, why do you want that specific feature? What exact task would that let you accomplish that you cannot accomplish right now?
There is a story in the sources that perfectly illustrates the danger of taking feature requests at face value. It involves the music network MTV. The author of the book was working for an agency, and MTV came to them asking for a highly complex custom analytics dashboard.
It was a massive feature request. The agency looked at it and realized it was going to be incredibly expensive and take 3 entire months of engineering time to build.
Right. And the agency built it, assuming they were delivering exactly what the client requested, but they failed to ask the clarifying question.
Exactly. They never investigated the symptoms before prescribing the cure.
Wait, really? So they spent 3 months building this massive software suite, but it was the wrong thing.
Yes, because the question the team failed to ask was, walk me through what you do with this data on a Friday afternoon. If they had anchored that feature request to a real-world workflow, they would have learned that the MTV executives did not want an interactive dashboard at all.
What did they actually want?
They just wanted to send a simple, automated weekly email report to their bosses showing that their numbers were going up. They just wanted to look good in an email thread.
Oh my gosh. The agency could have built a simple PDF generator in 1/10 of the time it took to build the complex dashboard.
Because they didn't dig into the why behind the feature request, they burned months of capital.
So we bypass the pathos problem by stripping the idea out of the conversation. We use silence to force the user to expand. We deflect compliments, we anchor fluff to timelines, and we investigate the root cause of feature requests.
That's the formula.
But even after filtering out all that noise, how do you actually validate the core business? At some point, you have to transition from gathering context to testing the foundation of your company.
You do. Once you clear away the bad data, you have to actively seek invalidation. Before you ever walk into a coffee shop or a Zoom call, you should prepare your top 3 most important questions.
And these are not soft, validating questions designed to make you feel good about your progress.
Not at all. These are the terrifying questions. These are the questions that possess the power to fundamentally alter or completely destroy your business model.
Seeking invalidation flips the entire startup script. We are usually desperate for validation, which is why we ask leading questions. But you are suggesting we actively look for the fatal flaw. What does a terrifying question actually look like?
Well, if you are building a new productivity tool, your core assumption is that people are frustrated by their current workflow. Your terrifying question is simply, show me your current system.
And if they pull up their laptop and say, oh, I don't really use a system, I just leave unread emails in my inbox.
Then your product is dead on arrival. They do not care enough about the problem to have instituted a workaround. And the critical part of seeking invalidation is how you handle the rejection. If you ask a hard question and get a lukewarm response, Do not start pitching harder.
But the immediate founder instinct is to assume you just didn't explain the vision well enough. You think, oh, if I just explain the 4K multi-angle guitar feature one more time, they will see the value?
And that's a huge mistake. That lukewarm response is pure high-fidelity data. It tells you either the problem is not painful enough for them to pay for a solution, or you are talking to the wrong target audience entirely.
Which transitions into another major pillar of the methodology, right? Audience segmentation. You cannot ask everyone the same set of questions because demographics do not buy products.
They really don't. Let's elevate this with a fitness app example from the text. If a founder says their target audience is young professionals who want to get fit, they are using a marketing persona, not a behavioral segment.
Young professionals is way too broad. You are going to interview people doing light chair yoga, people who have never set foot in a gym, and people trying to shave 10 seconds off their marathon pace.
Exactly. If you try to aggregate feedback from all of those different people, the data will cancel itself out.
Yeah.
You will end up with a feature roadmap that makes absolutely no logical sense. The MOM test requires segmenting audiences based on past actions rather than demographic labels.
You have to slice that group down until you find a specific cohort with a shared, acute, recent motivation.
So instead of young professionals, the segment shifts to a behavioral state. As the author realized for his own fitness app, the real audience was intermediate athletes who have plateaued after their beginner games and currently take their training seriously.
That is not just a demographic. It is a highly specific behavioral state. You know exactly what their shared frustration is, and you know exactly where they spend their time online.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, once you have isolated that specific behavioral segment,
Yeah.
and you have asked your terrifying questions, the ultimate validation of your idea comes down to one metric:
Then that is.
commitment. True validation is never a compliment. True validation requires the other person to willingly give up something of value.
We are talking about forcing them to put skin in the game. What forms of commitment actually count here?
Commitment generally falls into three distinct categories: time, reputation, or money. If you are having a fantastic conversation and the user claims your solution would change their life, you test the waters by asking for a commitment.
So for time, you ask, will you commit to a 1-hour feedback session next Tuesday to click through a wireframe prototype?
Right. For reputation, which is incredibly vital in B2B enterprise software, you ask, will you introduce me to your purchasing manager or your boss to discuss implementing this?
And for money, it is the ultimate test. You ask, will you prepay right now or put down a deposit to get early access? That separates the polite conversationalists from the actual paying customers in about 5 seconds.
It forces the truth to the surface. And this is particularly crucial when dealing with potential investors. An investor might sit across from you, tell you your pitch deck is incredible, and praise your market vision.
But if they will not commit to a clear next step, like a follow-up meeting with their partners, a term sheet, or an introduction to a key hire, then all that praise was just a polite exit strategy.
Exactly. It was a compliment designed to get you out of the boardroom feeling good about yourself, but with completely empty pockets.
It is a brutal reality check, but it saves years of wasted effort. And to get these commitments, to get this level of raw honesty, the environment you create matters immensely.
Oh, the environment is everything.
Now, the sources make a strong argument for keeping these interactions as casual as possible. If you cold email someone and send them a calendar invite for a formal 1-hour customer discovery interview, you are introducing a massive mental burden.
Yeah, they feel like they're doing you a huge favor, which automatically puts them in the mindset of being polite to a guest. Formal meetings breed formal, heavily guarded answers.
Right.
The user feels like they're taking a test, so they give you the answers they think you want to hear.
Exactly the opposite of what we need. Instead, the strategy is to meet them where they naturally exist without the formality.
Yep. If you are building a tool for professional public speakers, do not ask them for a sit-down coffee meeting. Buy a ticket to a public speaking conference, stand by the coffee carafe in the lobby, and strike up a 5-minute conversation.
Ask about their day, transition into the logistical problems they face traveling, ask your 3 terrifying questions, push for a commitment if it aligns, and then let them go. The less it feels like a structured interview, the more unvarnished truth you will extract.
That's the beauty of it. Keep it casual.
So what does this all mean? The overarching lesson here is that as a creator, a founder, or a visionary, your biggest enemy is not the competition. Your biggest enemy is the polite encouragement of people who do not want to hurt your feelings.
It's sad, but true.
By refusing to talk about your idea, by relentlessly asking about their past behavior, by using silence as a tool, and by ruthlessly anchoring fluff to reality, you put the customer on the witness stand. You save yourself the immense heartbreak and the financial ruin of spending years building a product that absolutely nobody wants.
It requires a radical shift in perspective. It takes immense discipline to suppress your own ego and truly investigate the market's actual behavior. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the last time you gave a friend feedback on their passion project, their new app, or a screenplay they wrote. Did you tell them the harsh, objective truth? Or did you pass the mom test by feeding them polite, ego-stroking fluff because you valued the relationship more than their business model? Next time you are the one asking for feedback, remember that you are the only person responsible for finding the truth, because everyone else in the room is just trying to be nice.
Wow. You have to be the guardian of your own reality. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mom test. We hope it fundamentally changes the way you approach your next big idea.
Until next time, keep asking the terrifying questions.